Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today I'll be going over the events of August 9th. And I really want to start off by thanking everybody for 2,000 subscribers and the insane amount of growth over the past week or so. Honestly, I never really expected something like this to happen. I've been doing YouTube now for like a year, maybe more, and this is probably the best I've done since the genesis of the channel. But I'm only getting started. I'm going to just continually improve and just increase the quality of the videos from now on. So I'm really grateful for it. Well, let's get into the actual events for August 9th. So in Kherson, not much on the front lines, but there is some drama in Nikolayev. There's been some curfews recently imposed on the city, and suspected collaborators with the Russian military, they're being arrested. And this is a new operation conducted by the internal intelligence agencies in Ukraine. And General Manchenko, he's the head of the Odessa Oblast at the moment, and he said that 400 suspected collaborators have been captured already, and this will only go up in the future. So it seems as if they are sort of preparing for whatever offensive operation Russia might go through with, and if they potentially attack Mykolaiv, they want to make sure that they tie up the loose ends and have the most cohesive defense possible of the city. That's probably also why there's curfews, just to get the city ready, prepare for even harder times than they're currently in. So it's not looking good in Mykolaiv, especially given the fact that blood supplies, donations of blood are running out now, and residents in the city, they're actually being asked to donate some of their blood in the transfusion centers. And this goes to the military troops, of course, who are suffering. They got wounded in the battle. There was also a lot of civilians who get um, they get hurt in the as collateral damage from artillery or from the daily strikes that we see. Even today, there was a strike earlier today, and yeah, they don't have a lot of supplies of blood, which is a big problem. So I do hope that they're able to fix that situation, and that no more civilians have to suffer, of course. Now, in the rest of the Kherson front, there's not much to talk about, but what I found interesting is that this was from a Russian source. They reported that Russia actually struck Bilohirka, which I was confused about. Maybe it's because I'm mistaking the name, because there are a lot of very similar names of towns, especially in Kherson, but in all of Ukraine. So they were saying that there's a strike on Bilohirka, and that would sort of imply that Ukraine is in control of this bridgehead around here at Andriivka Lazov, and they also sort of reached Bilohirka, especially if Russian sources are claiming that. Now, what they say is that in strikes on Kherson, the Russian troops, they killed 70 Ukrainians and destroyed 14 vehicles, and that those were from the 105th, 106th battalions of the 63rd Mechanized Brigade, which are operating in this area around this bridgehead. So I might have to change the map if it does turn out to be true, because the Ukrainian sources, they are reporting about this bridgehead around here, and I know that they were pushed back originally, but it's possible that they came back a third time and that they're now successful. And that would make sense because Russia, they already set their defenses around here, so they're not even um present in these towns around here, and I guess they're not present in Bielorka either. So that's something to look out for. But besides that, there's not much to talk about in the Kherson region. Just that Ukraine, they claimed that they struck some key points in here. Um, what they're saying is that they destroyed an ammo depot in Darivka, which is I think it's around here. I don't know if I can find it, but I do recall it being along the Dnieper River in the Kherson region. So that's what they said. In addition to that, they also claimed to have hit Melitopol and also Volnovaka, which is over here. Um, you have Melitopol over here, and then Volnovaka is over here. So that's what they're saying, and we also have footage from Melitopol from last night of a strike there. So there was some sort of potentially like maybe it was HIMARS. I don't know. Maybe maybe potentially it was like Tachka U or something, but that seems like it's too far away for a Tachka U to reach, just given the amount of kilometers from the front line to Melitopol. The Ukrainians, they say that they hit this depot around here in Henichesk and in this town, so somewhere around here. That's what they were saying, and there was some footage, so I suppose it might have been an accident, but it seems pretty unlikely. So maybe this was also a Tachka U, but I don't know if they have that sort of range, because I remember checking and the max range was like 120 kilometers. So it would be a bit of a stretch. Maybe it's ATACMs that they are using if America shipped that to them, and maybe that's what they used in Melitopol. In Melitopol, they said that they eliminated 100 Russian troops. That's what Ukraine said, and that's from like last night or from two nights ago. But there was no evidence of a strike in Melitopol from that time. It's possible that they struck a Melitopol, but I just didn't see any videos of it. I did see videos of a strike last night though, so there was at least some damage inflicted in Melitopol, and that's something that the Ukrainian mayor of the city did talk about. Now, around here in Velika, Novosilka, we have news of Russian scouts that are sort of gauging the Ukrainian fortifications and their strength. They're coming from Neskuchne, reaching the suburb around here called Vermivka, and just looking at the Ukrainian fortifications, and also in Velika Novosilka, of course. This is a very important town in the region. It is sort of a hotbed of Ukrainian resistance because this was really where Russia failed to advance further. They were able to advance along this this river for a while and take all these miners towns around here, but then they were stopped right outside of the environs of this town. So Ukraine is pretty heavily fortified in there. It is certainly a Russian target, so look out for that. Now we have, of course, news from Marinka. I'm going to adjust this map to show that the front lines are closer to this, and that these blocks over here are still under the Ukrainian control. So I apologize for overextending. I just based it off of the fact that the demarcation line was Drewsby Avenue, but that seems to be wrong. Even the Russian sources, they're saying that it's around here. Ukrainian sources, they also sort of admit that Russia entered the town, but they're saying that it's closer to here and that they didn't really take that much ground. So I will have to look into that and, of course, change it based off of the reporting. In Pesky, there's some news to talk about. So in Pesky, of course, there hasn't been much of a change here, but there is news of Ukraine actually fortifying Pesky. They don't want to leave the northwestern outskirts. So basically, they're using the E50 road and then going through here to sort of supply the front lines. And then they have to cross this bridge, and this is where most of the resistance is occurring around here. So this is where they have trenches and stuff set up. So they're using this as like the main supply line. So Russia will probably target this bridge if it hasn't been destroyed already, because it is sort of a connection between this part of Ukraine's front line and this part. But of course, they can just circumvent that and cross through these fields and supply it like that. But it is more difficult. Now, this also indicates that Ukraine isn't willing to withdraw just yet, although They have set up fortifications along Vodine and Pervomaiske. So this is their new backup front line, and I'm sure that will also include Novelske. And Novelske, it's still under Ukrainian control as of now. So this is how the front line would look like. And we also saw a Russian strike on this town over here. They destroyed a warehouse that was being used to supply Pesky. So you also have supplies going to Pesky, like from here, from this town over here. Now, we also heard reports of heavy fighting around Avdiivka and Krasnohorivka, but no real changes. There was aviation utilized and some larger artillery, but nothing really new around here to speak of. Ukraine, they're rotating their battered troops. They are fortifying backup lines, but as of now, they've been able to hold ground, and they've been doing this for a few days now. So we'll see for how long Russia is able to continue with the frontal attacks until they sort of lose steam, or potentially they're going to gain ground as time goes on incrementally if they're able to quickly or slowly but surely incinerate the Ukrainian positions. So look out for that. Now, let's go to the Bakhmut front, where we don't have much to talk about. There's still heavy fighting around Vasila Dolina for the heights around here. It is a very highly contested area. Same thing with Zaitsev. I think Russia, they're going to start trying to bypass these two towns because they've tried to attack them and there's been no success as of yet. So it is possible that they just try to go from here and just attack it like this, since they did see some limited success and they gained control of the eastern outskirts. So maybe they'll just abandon these two towns for now. Again, they didn't enter Kodema yet either, so there's nothing to report in the southern outskirts either. There was some rumors about Russia reaching this so-called vineyard factory around here in this area, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. It is possible that Russia will try to reach this point though, because they can try to sort of solidify themselves in one key point in the city and then just use that as a forward position and then get their flanks more secure later on. So this could be used as sort of like um a first attack in the first probing into Bakhmut. We might see that occur in the future. I think that's the most likely way that the battle will actually begin. And they've made some ground over here, not that I know of specifically on the map, but they've surely advanced at least a kilometer or two in this area. It is hard to map it out though because we haven't really seen much footage from this sector. We did get some footage from Soledar though. We have this photo of the Knauf plant, and it is pretty battered. I'm not even sure if there are any troops inside now. Um, from the Russian side, it's possible that this entire time it was Ukrainian troops, and only now the Russians are storming in. Because we did hear news about that from not just Kadyrov, because Kadyrov, he did talk about capturing the Knauf plant, but we're also hearing from Julian over here, who's known for being pro-Ukraine, but he's ruffled a lot of feathers over past few months for being a doomer of some sorts. He's now saying that there are sources besides Kadyrov confirming that Russia is attacking the plant. It's possible that Ukraine is still present there, but we do have footage from the Russians that is just like a kilometer or two east of it, as he's saying over here. And they are using tanks and small arms fire and everything like that to attack the Ukrainian troops in this area. So I might have to update this later on to just show that all of it is under the Russian control. But we don't know if that's true just yet, because Kadyrov, he is very, very premature in his announcements from past experience with him. We also have news of attacks again on Yakovlivka. It is good for Russia that they took these heights around Repivka and Novokamyanka. It does give them a good position to then go and attack Yakovlivka and then secure the heights around here as well. I would say they should try to go for this town and then flank Soledar, but it appears they've put their eggs into this basket of just advancing front on a frontal assault towards Soledar, just going headfirst into the town instead of flanking it. But who knows? Maybe they'll do that later on. Now let's go to the Seversk front, where there is finally some news. We're having reports now of Ukrainians and Russians engaging along these key towns, um, Verkno-Kamyanske, Prihorivka, which I previously had under Russian control, both of them, but it is possible that Russia did fully control both of them, but at the moment that's just not the case. They were probably pushed back because they were overextended and didn't have the men to maintain their forward position, so they just withdrew back to safer positions until there were um, further men and they recuperated and everything from the offensives in Lysychansk and everything. So now we're hearing about renewed fighting in Prihorivka. In Prihorivka, it's on higher elevation, and then that could be used for an attack on Serebryanka, which was attempted but failed previously. And again, Verkno-Kamyanske, that's the one town keeping Russia from Seversk, so it is important to keep the Russians at bay over here. We still estimate that the front line is around here in Ivano-Darivka. Spirne is probably under Russian control, but Ivano-Darivka is firmly under Ukrainian control. They pushed out the Russians from here, and now there's just fighting here again. And it was silent for a few weeks because of the shift towards Bakhmut, but that might have been a sort of diversion because now you have all these troops from also Kramatorsk, Slavyansk as well, Svanivka, as I talked about yesterday, and Seversk being moved to Bakhmut, being moved to Soledar, and this opens up an opportunity for the Russians to attack along this line in Seversk. So we'll see if they're successful in that. I'm thinking if they actually attempt a forward advance, and if it's not just the regular fighting and that we've been seeing for a while, then it's possible that they take Verkno-Kamyanske and Prihorivka back, and then they could push into Ivano-Darivka, Vimka. Then the longer term goal would be to reach Svanivka and cut off the supply line for Seversk. That's something that could potentially happen. That's what I would be doing if I was in the Russian high command, something like this. But for now, it's just the preliminary reports, and it seems that Ukraine is holding on to their ground for now. We haven't seen any changes just yet. We heard reports of MiG-29 being shot down in this area around Toretsk, and um, a lot of equipment, platoons of MLRS being destroyed. We also heard about platoons of self-propelled howitzers being destroyed around here in the area around Seversk and Donetsk in general. So that's coming from Russia. Now, I want to go on to Kharkiv, where there's not much news, just the usual. I really need to fix this part. This is all under Ukrainian control. It's just that, let me show you. Look at this. There is an insane amount of dots over here. So I'd have to move every single one in order to make a new front line. So that's going to take a while. So I haven't gotten to that. Just know that the front line looks more like this, and that Dolina and Krasnopilia, the front line isn't that close to them. We heard reports that Russia was actually trying to resume an offensive in Izium, but they weren't that successful. They were trying to go and attack Dolina again and also advance along Bohorodichny, which I'm pretty sure Ukraine actually does still have a control over these parts of Bohorodichny, so I'll have to change the map to sort of indicate that. Ukraine, they've been able to fortify this town very well, especially the eastern outskirts, which has prevented Russia from expanding their control southwards. And here we don't have much news, just that in Kozacha Lopan, Ukraine claims that they destroyed a ammo depot, and there were also reports of recon groups and saboteurs firing upon the airport in Kursk, which I'm pretty sure it's called like Kalino Airfield, and it's pretty interesting because it is pretty far away from the front line, but the saboteurs, they were pushed back, and the mortars they fired, they were suppressed, at least according to the Russians. They say that they were neutralized and everything. Russia, they say that they've intercepted 17 HIMARS around the entire front line. They said that this was happening in Melitopol and in Kherson as well. So I don't know if that's sort of a denial of the Ukrainian claims that they inflicted damages upon the Russians deep into the Russian controlled lines. It's possible that some were intercepted in that others landed, but 17 HIMARS, that's a lot. Each specific amount of ammo, each individual one is $150,000. So it is very costly, not for Ukraine, but for the United States to continue supplying them. But that is what they're intending to do now. There is a package that I talked about that is being announced by the United States, and in total it's 5.5 billion, and 4.5 billion of that is going towards budgeting issues because their deficit, the Ukraine's deficit, is very high now. Their debt to GDP ratio is soaring, and they don't have the necessary funds to pay for medical services and energy costs and all that sort of stuff. So you have the United States through the World Bank and USAID giving 4.5 billion to them, and then you have another $1 billion going towards military equipment. So I'll read what equipment they're being sent according to the U.S. What they're saying is that they're going to get more ammo for HIMARS, but no new HIMARS systems, which is interesting. 75,000 rounds of 155 millimeter artillery ammo, and then 20 120 millimeter mortars, and then another 20,000 rounds for those mortars. They're getting the NASAM system. They're getting 1,000 Javelin rockets, and they're getting hundreds of AT-4 anti-armor systems. So that's pretty interesting. They're getting 50 armored medical treatment vehicles. They're getting claymore mines. They're getting C4 explosives, and they're getting a lot of medical supplies like first aid, bandages, monitors, and stuff like that. So that's a total of 1 billion. And based on the CBS report that we talked about previously, a lot of those shipments probably won't make it into the front lines and won't be used by the Ukrainian soldiers. So I'm interested to see how America deals with that and how they ensure that the equipment that they're supplying will actually go to the front lines, if they're even going to care at all. But a lot of these longer range systems like the HIMARS and even like Tachka-Us and stuff like that, which Tachka-Us were used on Belgorod previously. And this fear, especially given what occurred in the airfield in Kursk, it's probably leading to some flight restrictions in Russia. There are 11 Russian airports which are relatively near the border with Ukraine, which are extending their restrictions until August 17th. So that includes cities like Anapa, it includes Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, Gelendzhik, Krasnodar, Kursk, Lipetsk, and Rostov on Don, and then also Simferopol over here and Elista. So that's a lot of towns and cities around this area which are being restricted for a while. That's probably a sign that Ukraine does have some sort of capabilities to strike and that Russia is fearful of that. Besides that, we also have Russian strikes on Ukraine, deep into Ukraine, which have occurred over the past few days. And I'm only talking about them now because we have more information, because it was announced in Russia's daily briefing of the events today in the morning. So there were two strikes on Venetia over the past few days, and there were the hypersonic Kinzhal missiles that were utilized. And Ukraine, they say that they shot down 4 of them, and they showed the fragments and everything. But that might be from one day, and then from the other day, the Russians did actually successfully strike a underground command post. We don't have any footage of the underground command post. That's just what the Russian Ministry of Defense said. And there was also a strike on Uman, which was actually a sea-to-air strike. So that's interesting. I don't know. It is pretty far away, but I can see how it's possible. So there was a strike here in Uman, and it was like on an ammo depot, and there were some ammunition for HIMARS and M777 howitzers destroyed in there. So that's what you have from the Russian side, and then Ukraine, of course. I talked about the strikes that they mentioned, which were using artillery or surface-to-surface missiles, stuff like that. That's really it for today. So I want to thank everybody again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.